Hi, my name is EURUSD, currency trader and trading coach at trading180.com, and welcome to this week's supply and demand Forex technical analysis. If you're a new watcher, welcome, and if you're returning, welcome back. This video is going to be time-stamped, so you can skip to your favorite pairs or the pairs that you trade, or you can just watch the whole analysis as I go through everything. I'll also be showing you $2 trades that I entered this week, among others, but on this video I'll be showing you 2 of the dollar pairs that I entered this week and really my reasons behind them as well. And yeah, so let's get into the analysis, and I do hope you had a great trading week as well, and I really hope that you gain some knowledge from these videos every week that I do. And you know, don't be afraid to ask me anything in the comment section below, or you can email me at info@trading180.com. and in these videos I really just go over, you know, the basics of supply and demand, right? There's a lot more that goes into supply and demand, but from the weekly perspective and weekly videos, supply and demand is not a concept that is you know, traded or understood you know, a lot. And I think it's my belief in how I trade that really understanding supply and demand is really the key to you know, successful trading. And that's not knocking anybody else, but how I, you know, trade the market. So let's get into the pairs. So we got the US dollar index, and we use the US dollar index as really just some confluence if trading dollar pairs. So we use the dollar index is a measure of dollar strength against major currencies. Some of the major currencies like the euro, the pound, the yen, etc. And what we would do is we look for supply and demand zones, right, on the dollar index, and then we'd look to see if there's any strength or weakness depending on how you see it, and then correlate that with any of the dollar currency pairs like the dollar yen, dollar Swiss, etc. right? So this week or into last week, we did have prices come down into this area here. We did have what traders would probably call a false breakout, and I would call this a stop hunt, right? And then you had pretty much this bullish candle, and this is what it's kind of looked like on the 4-hour time frame. So you had, you know, support, what traders would have called support anyway. This is demand, right? And really support and resistance are just supply and demand zones that have been projected into the future, right? So you had, once you had a few touches of a level, right, there would have been traders looking to potentially trade this. They believe that the stronger, the more touches a level has, the stronger it gets, which is not true, right? And then you had this candle breakdown here, and then you've had this massive push up. So where would the stops have been? Way behind, below this this level of what traders would have called support. Stop hunts get nailed, right? And then, you know, potentially we could be off to the upside. So with that being said, what I'm going to do, we haven't necessarily made a new demand zone yet, right? Because we need to make higher highs. So I will drag this down though. I will drag this down, as we did have some demand right here, and this is really the zone. I want to put that, actually I'll keep that zone there, right? Technically this is still part of the last week's zone, but I'm going to drag this down just in case prices do decide to come down, right? Because we did again have some strong demand right here, right? So if we do get prices come down here, right, bit of weakness on the dollar and then a pullback, what you want to see is a bit of weakness on any of the other pairs, and then if you get some price action on here, right, on the dollar index confirming dollar strength, then you would look for confirming price action to buy the dollar. And the same thing would be for selling, you know, the dollar, for example, if you're looking for supply levels, right? And really the only supply level that I can see is, technically we did have one right here, right? So there's one here, supply right? And it's quite tight. So this would be what we would call potentially like a value range, but I'll get into that in the next currency pair. But you have, you know, a supply zone on top of a demand zone, so we could be entering potentially like a little mini range, right? So I'm going to include this. I don't really like doing it, but I'm going to include it, right? Because technically we did make lower highs and lower lows, and what I mean by that is you've got there, and then you've got a lower high, and a lower high isn't confirmed until you get this lower low, right? So got to include it, and it's right there. So potentially we could get some dollar weakness, and you could see some selling if you're looking to take advantage of any kind of dollar potential weakness and sentiment, right? So and again, just remember that technicals are just a reflection of fundamentals and sentiment, and also what we call a zero-sum game as well, right? Where you know, trading's not pretty, it's not lovely, you know, people are out for your money, right? And they know where your stops are, hence the reason why I kind of covered what I thought was a stop hunt, right? So you got the zero-sum game, and then the technicals really just are a reflection of fundamentals and sentiment, right? So moving on to the US dollar Japanese yen, right? And what we have here is last week's analysis. And just in case you're new, I'll go through it, right? So supply and demand, technical analysis, basics. So we've got basically our supply and demand zones, which we've plotted here, green zones, red zones, and we got value ranges. Now the value ranges are where we expect prices to potentially range from, right? So we know that from the highs are an expensive area, right? Supplies are usually expensive areas, and demand zones are where we have cheap areas or potentially cheap areas, right? And we know this to be true because in the past buyers thought this was a bargain and pushed prices higher, right? If prices weren't deemed cheap here or a bargain, then prices wouldn't go higher, right? So what we do is we project into the future, demand zones, right? And then we can see where or if there is going to be demand, or if buyers assume this to be demand again or a bargain again in the future. And that's really the premise behind supply and demand zones, right? We're taking into account value, and when it comes to value ranges, what we expect to see is price at some point enter a range as prices do range. And ranging is also known as you know, price acceptance as well between buyers and sellers. Now we don't know where prices are going to range from, or prices are going to be accepted, right? So when I say prices at the moment, an expensive area was the 113,176, right? Buyers didn't want to buy above here, but now we're getting buyers looking at potentially, or demand potentially coming into the equation right here at the 1103 level. So that's around about 200 pips, right? So we could potentially be entering a range between an expensive level and a potentially cheap level. Now we don't know if this is cheap. We just see price action. Depending on the price action, sentiment and fundamentals, then we decide whether this is going to be a bargain or not, right? So we're expecting a range, and then the yellow lines are really from fair value. So we don't know whether prices are going to range from here, or from here, where prices are going to be accepted, right? So we're looking for price acceptance. So if this doesn't work out, which in fact we did kind of break through that this demand zone here, so we can actually clear this. So we touch this demand zone here, right? And like I said, between an expensive level and a cheap level is fair value, right? So we got this fair value lining up, right? And that fair value zone was between this low and this high, because we could have prices range anywhere between, again, right here and right here. So again, just to illustrate the point, what we have is we have an overall range from 2018, which is right here, and this is the 2018 highs to the 2018 lows, and prices are contained within that range here, that low, and that high, right? So we have an overall range between here and here, right? This is where prices have been deemed expensive or cheap, right? So I'm always looking for, you know, value ranges and looking for areas, and looking for areas on a price chart where I want to be a buyer or a seller depending on my fundamental and sentiment bias, right? So we draw value ranges, and then what we want to do on top of that is determine the supply and demand order equations. Order equation is just other people's motivations for buying and selling, and where the most supply and where the most demand is. So first of all, we start off with horizontal support and resistance on the daily and the intraday. So daily, we've got 1, 2, 3 touches of this level, 4 touches. This is going to be support, support, resistance, resistance, and now we could potentially have support. So we've got support and resistance traders here, right? Then we've got diagonal support and resistance, things like trend lines, right? Traders who trade trend lines. We've got, you know, 1 touch, 2 touch, 3 touch, right? And now we've come up into here. There's going to be, you know, some demand here potentially, you know, from trend traders, right, who are trading trend lines. And then we get dynamic support and resistance, which is the 100 and the 200, EMAs and SMAs, right? We've got nothing there at the moment, but what we do have is the 50 EMA and SMA being touched here. And why the 200, 150 and 100 is simply because, you know, lots of traders trade them, right? They're the most popular ones. They're watched by a lot of traders, both you know, big and small, retail and professional traders, and so we know that there should be potentially some demand, and you can see where prices have come in now. Do we know that level's going to hold here? Potentially, potentially not. Our job as traders is to facilitate just the probability, right, and manage our risk. So all we're looking to do is, if you're looking to be a buyer of the dollar, this is going to be the setup that you want to be taking, right? And this is not financial advice, by the way, because again, there's other things that come into it, like risk on, risk off, right? And there's some more, obviously, you know, analysis that I do. You know, this is just the supply and demand basics, right? And if you do want to be a buyer of this, this would be the opportunity. If you would want to be a seller, for example, you would do exactly the same thing, but from the downside. Now, do you need everything to align from a supply and demand order equation? No, you don't, right? You're never going to have everything line up all the time, right? But, and again, it's like I said, this is just a reflection of, you know, sentiment and fundamentals. So you just find reasons as to the reasons why you want to be a seller, right? And from this perspective, what we have is, from a selling perspective, what you have is supply zone right there, right? And then you would look for any kind of diagonal, horizontal support and resistance here. You won't get any dynamic, simply because, you know, we've got the dynamic, the moving averages are really below this level here, right? So there's your options for the dollar yen this week. Moving on to the dollar Swiss. And the dollar Swiss, this is a pair that I actually ended up taking, and I'll go into a bit of detail on this. So again, we're into this demand zone here. My prices came down, and from a value range perspective, right, we're in really this range from this low to this high. Tool, right, and it's just basically a Fibonacci tool that I've just, you know, just put the 50% on there. 50% represents the fair value, and then the highs and the lows, right? So prices have been ranging between this high and this low from probably what's that, May, right? Putting a new high, low, and then we've just not really broken out really above that. So I know that we've got 2 touches of this level, of this higher level, and I really want to be, my sentiment on this this currency pair is to be a buyer of the dollar. So I'm buying probably around fair value at the moment, which is fine. Anywhere above fair value, you're getting into the expensive area, right? So prices came down into this this fair value zone, and then what I did is I went down into a intraday time frame, right, and started looking for some horizontal support and resistance. So if we go down to the 4 hour, what we can see is see this level here, right, where you have, in fact, let me take off this level here, right? You've got support, resistance, some support here, bit of resistance at the top, some support here, right? And prices came down into this level, right? So what I did was I got involved in a setup which I called a 2-candle swing, right? And managed to I haven't actually taken profit on this. I was up about nearly a 3 to 1, just over a 3 to 1 on this trade, but prices have pulled back after GDP, which I really wasn't expecting. But I'm still in this trade, still up on this trade. I'm hoping that prices end up going to the upside, as my target is around this this 100 level here. So still in this trade at the moment. And again, if you go back out, right, let's look at some diagonal support and resistance that kind of supports this trade, right? So you had higher lows and higher highs being made, right, into this level. So again, going down into the intraday right here. And then we also have the 21 and the 50, right, with some confluence around here as well, right? So I had, you know, everything pretty much lining up. My fundamentals come first, by the way. Fundamentals and sentiment always come first, because that really determines my my value. And if you want to know about fundamentals and sentiment, I've got a free course. You can subscribe. The link is in the description box below as well. Yeah, just click on that and get your access to the fundamental course for free, right? And it will basically, you know, show you how I determine, you know, strength and weakness of currencies, right? So yeah, so that's pretty much my dollar Swiss trade, and there was some other stuff going on there as well, right? Let's move on to the CAD. Actually, matter of fact, let's see if there's any supply zones here for you. Not at the moment. So that's pretty much the analysis, same as last week. No new supply zones have been created. Moving on to the dollar CAD. Dollar CAD blank. All right. Dollar CAD kind of broke through that level there. I'm going to get rid of that demand zone, and that's going to turn into a supply zone. Let's put that there. Supply, right? And then what else do we have? We do have a supply zone here as well. What I'm going to do is, I don't like it being too cluttered, but it is, because we've been making lower highs and lower lows, right, as we've been going along, right? In fact, I'm going to make this one big one, right? Delete that. Just make that zone. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to get rid of this overall zone here, right? So here we go. We've got our overall supply zone. And when we have, again, large supply zones like this or large demand zones like this, all we do is we would zoom in or look for horizontal supply and demand within these horizontal support and resistance within these supply and demand zones, and then we look to take the trade around there. So from a buying perspective, I think this is probably going to be the next area down here to look to buy if prices do get down here, right? I'm gonna delete this one, matter of fact. Yeah, so I want to look for prices to obviously come down here before looking to, you know, establish a buy. And again, it's not a recommendation to buy or sell, right? And again, just because I'm saying I'm going to be looking to establish one doesn't mean I will. Depends on obviously data and sentiment, etc., right? But anywhere around here would be a decent buy. If prices do pull back to anywhere within this this supply zone you can try and get short. Again, look for some intraday levels. And the one that kind of sticks out to me straight away is going to be something probably around here, as you have some resistance, support, resistance, right? That'd be the first area to look to. And again, I think there's probably one little minor one right here, potentially, right? So those are your options for the dollar CAD around here, and then looking for some confluence around here. So again, if you're looking for some diagonal support and resistance, you'd be doing something like that, right? And then looking for areas if it does line up, right? New Zealand dollar. This was a currency that I actually also am short in at the moment, right? So again, just going over the analysis, if we're looking for, you know, value ranges, value range right there. There's a range here, a potential range, and also another potential range from this high to this low, right? Now, what we had, if we're going to be ranging between here and here, which we currently are, right? Coming back up into here was where I was looking to get short, which I did. So we have, you know, support, resistance, bit of resistance here, and then we have, you know, prices come back up into here as well. So we have some horizontal support and resistance, confluence with this supply and demand zone. Diagonal, not so much. It kind of, you know, broke through, and then we have, let's look at some dynamic support and resistance. I don't think we got anything on there, but we did have, well, we got it a bit higher up right here. So we didn't have everything in alignment, but my fundamental bias, sentiment bias, was to get to the downside anyway. Zoom down into the 4-hour chart, and this is what it looked like. Ranging market up into this level here, 2 candle swing entry, and then nearly hit my 2-to-1, which is basically one of my minimums that I look for, depending on you know, the sentiment, if it changes. But we've got a bit of a pullback, so I'm hoping that prices will end up going, it's just a pullback and prices end up going further down, right? If it doesn't, fair enough, it was only one trade, and I move on to the next trade. Potentially I might move my stop to break even, but it depends, right? But that was the second trade that I got involved in this week, and there was a couple of others, but they're not, I don't cover them on this in this video. So moving on to, actually, matter of fact, before we move on to that, let's do some analysis again. Well, we've got a bit of we've got some demand here, right? I'm gonna put the demand in right there, and it's because you've created higher lows, higher highs. So this potentially could be the area that you want to be, you know, looking to actually buy in. Again, if you go down into lower time frame, this could be a buy signal, double bottom to the upside, right? So if I'm wrong about this trade and prices continue to go higher, then, you know, you're going to be on the right side of the market. But that's going to be it for now for this currency pair. Again, looking for, if this price doesn't, you know, price action doesn't work out for me, I'll be looking to probably get short around here. And again, if prices do continue to go lower and you want to be a buyer of the New Zealand dollar, that would be the area to try and get long. Moving on to the pound dollar, same exact thing. You just go through the analysis, looking for areas of you know, confluence with supply and demand zones. As you can see from last week, I didn't take off this this demand zone. We ended up, you know, coming up higher a bit. Now, last week I did make a bit of a mistake on this one. Shouldn't really be admitting to this, but I assumed that this was a negative candle, right? Which actually it was positive. It was a bullish candle. It closed higher than it's open. So really, what I should have done is put the supply zone right there, right? Because that was the last candle before making lower lows, but I assume that this was a negative candle. I didn't really go into detail. As you can see, it is actually a positive candle, if you can just about see that, right? Positive candle. So really and truly, the supply zone should have been here, right? But it, you know, ended up putting it here. So if you manage to actually get involved in this, I really wanted to get short in this, right? But when I realized, you know, my mistake, I couldn't get involved in this, and then there would have been my entry right there, yeah, if this had been correct. And that's what I definitely would have taken that, but because I saw it afterwards and basically it was up here, supply zone, I couldn't take it because it didn't come into my supply zone area, so I didn't get short on that. But if you manage to get short on that candle, right, or use that 2 candle entry as a trigger to get short, brilliant. You know, would have made some decent pips right now, right? But from a daily perspective, you're just looking at probably if prices do come back up into this. In fact, let me get this right again. If prices do come back up into this zone right here, a bit higher, then I'll be looking potentially for a short trade. You know, we've got Brexit coming up. You know, no deals, hard Brexit, soft Brexit, a lot of uncertainty around the pound. So not looking to buy the pound anytime soon. Looking to short it, and then obviously we've got a lot of growth and coming in from the dollar. So, but if you want to be a buyer of the pound, you know, you're looking at this area right here. And we've made higher highs and higher lows. So technically, this is going to be your next area of demand, and I'm gonna get rid of that one, right? That's going to be your demand zone right here. So if prices do come down, then we can look to be buyers. So moving on to the pound yen. Let me start getting rid of some of these. Pound yen, again, we're into this demand zone right here, right? This could be potentially your buy if you're looking to buy the pound. And if not, you're looking to buy it probably down here from a supply perspective. Looking to sell the pound, I would say we've created technically a lower low right there. So here is going to be your supply zone right on top of this demand zone, right? So if you do get, again, that'd be like an intraday time frame. This is what it would look like. You'd be looking for prices to come up to this last high before looking to get short, right? And again, just apply the supply and demand technical analysis basics to you know, these the rest of these currency pairs that I'm going to be going through. I'll be zipping through these quite quickly because I know these videos can be long for some people. Moving on to the pound Swiss, come down into this demand zone here, hidden demand, and we've reacted slightly, right? So traders could have made some money off of this, taking advantage of some short-term positive pound sentiment, right? Or maybe just some profit taking from this high to this low. I did get into this trade, took profit around here, but I'll be looking to short again, short the pound. Not really interested in this currency pair, to be fair, not for now anyway. But if you're looking to get short at the moment until we create a new lower low, then this would be your level of, you know, supply right here. But until that happens, your next supply zone is going to be all the way up here. If that doesn't happen, right? If that does happen, then yeah, brilliant. If it doesn't happen, then that's going to be your next level of supply to get short. If you're looking to get long, anywhere around these areas right here, and again, just look for potential got a bit of a level right there when it comes to, you know, some horizontal support and resistance. Moving on to the euro dollar again, we're within this range. I think I went over this last week, not sure if I can remember if I did, but here you go anyway. So you've got value range right here, right, and prices are really contained between this high and this low, and we're around fair value. If I'm looking to get short on this currency pair, I'm really waiting for prices to come back up to here, and you can see this is more of an untouched level, this level between this 1.17 probably 1.18 matter of fact, yeah, 1.18 level and 1.1850 level is more of the fresher level of supply. So if we do get some short-term sentiment, right, positive sentiment for the euro, negative sentiment for the dollar, and prices do start to drift their way back up here, this is where I'll be looking to potentially get short. If you're looking to buy the dollar, again, this would be your first area to try and look to buy the dollar, right? I'm sorry, buy the euro, right? And then again, just looking for any sort of horizontal, diagonal, and dynamic support and resistance. Let's see if we get any lined up around there. Yeah, so if we get, you know, prices move up here, then we got the 100 and the 200. I think that's going to be the EMA, and then that's the 100's EMA, and then we've got the 200 EMA, right, in alignment with this fresh area of supply. And then we've got, yeah, the 50s are really, you know, all the way down here. So got some confluences up top. Looking at the euro yen, again, we had this demand zone from last week, put in a bullish you know, candlestick pattern, but ended up breaking through. Let's get rid of that. Our next demand zone, if prices do drift their way down, it's going to be into here. Then look for potential buys, and these are going to be your potential sells, right? And we do have a supply zone because we did make a lower low. Supply zone right here. So if we do have prices come back up to here, this would be your first area. Matter of fact, not this area here, but if we do break through, then that's going to be your second area to try and get short. And again, just go through your supply and demand technical analysis basics. Euro pound, right? We got yep, so we did react off of this area here. So if we're looking for a sell trade, this is where you'd be looking to try and get short. Looking for a buy trade, if prices do drift down into this first demand zone, this would be the area you'd be looking to try and get long, right? That's pretty much that analysis. Again, I can kind of see a bit of a trend line, but I don't think it aligns up with any really demand zones. Nah, it wouldn't align up any kind of demand zone. So those are your options at the moment. And again, just apply the TA basics, supply and demand TA basics. Going on to the Euro Swiss. Broke through, did react to this demand zone here, but probably drifted further down, right? If we're looking at, you know, the value range being between that high and that low, now we're drifting our way pretty much down to, if you're looking to be a buyer of the euro, that is, right, drifting our way down into you know, fair value, which is really where you want to be looking to establish well, where I look to establish buying positions, right? It's not really wise to you know, establish buying positions in what we'd call expensive areas unless you really believe that prices, you know, should end up, you know, valuation wise should be up here, and you can take advantage of, you know, trends, etc., right? And even though there was a horizontal support and resistance there in alignment with that, you know, that supply and demand zone, so it wasn't necessarily a bad trade, but from a value perspective, right, from a value perspective, this overall range here wasn't fantastic. If we're looking at maybe this range from this low to this high, again probably still in the expensive area. Now we're coming down into a cheaper area, so this is where I'm probably going to be looking to establish some long trades, again just depending on fundamentals and sentiment. But I do prefer the euro over the Swiss, but again depends on the risk sentiment, risk on and risk off, right? So from a buying perspective, let's delete some of this stuff. From a buying perspective, yeah, we've got this area here. If we're looking for sell trades, that's going to be a first area to try and look to get short, as there's your supply zone there, right? So if you get any kind of pullback into this area, this could be a potential sell. Moving on to the Euro-Aussie. Euro-Aussie, we've been pretty much ranging for the past 2-3 weeks within this supply and demand zones. Again, price acceptance, between buyers and sellers, right? That's what I talk about. Buyers and sellers are in agreement between, what's expensive and really what's cheap. So again, what you're going to be doing is looking for buy or sell trades, but we know that price acceptance normally goes into price discovery once something fundamentally or from sentiment perspective changes. So what is going to be the catalyst, right, of the euro or the Australian dollar that's going to push prices either lower or higher? There's usually a fundamental or sentiment bias. In fact, there's always a fundamental or sentiment bias that pushes prices out of a price acceptance range between buyers and sellers to your price discovery, which is going to be your trending market, right? And again, where prices range between that low and that high at the moment, or that low and that high. So we could see prices start to range between this low and that high, right, and so on and so forth. These are just areas where we're just looking to take advantage of ranging markets, these demand and supply zones, and look for really, again, value, right? So again, just immediate wise, buying. If you're looking to sell, probably be further up around this fresher area of supply, right? And this will be a second area. Australian dollar, US dollar, Aussie dollar. Again, this was a nice opportunity to get short on this. Very similar, in fact, pretty much the same as the New Zealand dollar, right? I was talking to a trader earlier this week and talking about the setup. And I limit myself to really just two currencies pairs when it comes to the same currency. So, for example, I was already in the dollar Swiss and looking at the, I could only take basically one other dollar pair. I don't really want to load up on, dollar currencies, because if dollar starts to, weaken, then I'm in 3 currency pairs, and that's not good for my risk management. So I limit myself to 2, dollar pairs or yen pairs or euro pairs, etc. Right? And it was really a decision between the Australian dollar, US dollar, or the New Zealand dollar, US dollar as a potential sell, right? And this was really the area to look to get short. So yeah, we had pretty much say identical but very, very similar setups on both of these New Zealand dollar and Australian dollar currency pairs. I just chose the New Zealand dollar because I thought fundamentally it was weaker than the Australian dollar, right? But it was pretty much the same setup. Supply zone, prices came in, and then we got the sell-off, and we're getting a bit of a pullback at the moment. So targets pretty much for the other traders are going to be at the bottom of the range. Potentially they've made a few pips on this, right, depending on where they entered, right? Would have been that potential outside candle or the 2 candle swing right there. So yeah, that was the Australian dollar trade. From a analysis perspective, really there's no new supply and demand zones in here, and this would have been just the range from there to there, by the way, right? No, nothing new from a supply and demand perspective. And going on to and lastly, the Australian dollar, Japanese yen, right? We've got, again, just a range. Price has been ranging between that low and that high. Around fair value. If I'm looking to be a buyer with the Australian dollar, now is probably a decent time, but there's just some risk going on in the market with the trade wars. You know, every time Donald Trump comes out and says something, you know, China comes out and says something, then it's you know, it's risk off, and then when everything's quiet, it seems, you know, to be risk on at the moment. Quite challenging, these markets, from a fundamental and sentiment perspective, but nevertheless, as long as we manage our risk reward, we'll be all right. So looking to buy, if you're looking to buy the Australian dollar at the moment, you are below fair value, so it'll be a decent buy if you're looking to, you know, take advantage of, you know, this potential double bottom pattern, right, to the upside. I probably prefer if prices did come back down into this area right here, but that's not a bad buy at all. If you're looking to buy the Japanese yen, then you'd be buying more of an expensive area, so you'd be looking for more of a pullback, right? And again, did we make a lower low? No, we haven't made really a lower low, so I'm going to keep the supply zones where they are, right? So if you're looking to get short, it's pretty much right there. So that's it for the analysis this week. Again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. You know, comment in the section box below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Also, we have a free fundamental and sentiment analysis course, and it's things that I learned from my mentor, who was a ex-hedge fund, who is an ex-hedge fund trader. You know, fundamentals and sentiment can be very, you know, misunderstood, and before I learned this stuff, you know, the extent of my fundamental analysis was pretty much, you know, buy when there's good news and sell when there's bad news. And there's a lot more to it. There is a hell of a lot more to fundamental and sentiment analysis. It's not complex. It does take, you know, a bit of practice and reading, etc. But once you get it, the benefits really are just, you know, currency selection. Rather than just taking trades, you know, randomly, you can actually predict ranging and trending markets, you know, well in advance. You know, you can understand why you shouldn't be taking certain trades and why you should, and a lot more. And I show you a whole lot more in that that fundamental and sentiment analysis course, and it's free as well. So take a look, take a watch. It's not, you know, it's sexy or exciting, but at the same time, you know, you have to do what other traders are not willing to do. I have a fundamental sentiment edge over everybody else who doesn't trade fundamentals and sentiment, right? And in Forex trading is a zero-sum game. So I'm trying to basically have every single edge over my opponent, which is, you know, you guys, unfortunately, right? Unless you're on my side and taking the same trades as me. So fundamentals and sentiment is definitely a massive edge, and really the reasons why currencies move in the directions that they do, right? And the, you know, the exchange rates, etc. So if you want to know more, it's absolutely free. Just sign up to the supply and demand zones in the description box below, and you'll get that. Have a watch, let me know your feedback, if you like it, if you don't like it, if you understand certain things, if you don't understand certain things, I'm here, I'll reply back to you. So don't forget to like, also subscribe, tell a friend, and like I said, if you want to leave any, you know, comments, good, negative, if it's negative, definitely make it be constructive. I'm always about improvement as well. So guys, I hope you have a great trading week, and take care. So if you'd like to receive the best supply and demand Forex levels absolutely free, click on the link in the description box below, enter your email address, and we'll send you the levels that we have just analyzed in this video. You'll get all of the major Forex currency pairs, and you'll get regular updates and never miss a Forex trading opportunity.